Give me 1 second. I promise to go to the term pedophile. That's the first people were talking about read. There's something called heapophile. People try to know these things. But I think the reason we don't make those distinctions is because it's very hard to explain the difference without sounding like a pedophile.
What you're about to witness is Megyn Kelly defending pedophilia.
We have not seen some slew of young women come forward to say, me too.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
On Donald Trump molesting them or having paid for sex with them.
This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
When they were barely legal or otherwise. It just hasn't happened.
You know what that's called, right? When somebody takes underage girls and they pass them on, quote unquote, to other people.
Yeah, in fact, at that same press conference, the lawyer for a group of the women actually said Jeffrey Epstein would prey upon women when they were underage, true and disgusting and horrible. And then the lawyer said, and when they came of age and he was no longer interested in them,
that's called grooming.
He would then pass them on.
That's called grooming.
So there was no pedophilia ring. There was a pedophile who did unspeakable things to vulnerable girls, and then they would age out of Jeffrey Epstein's pedophilic interests, at which point he would then start to pass them around to his friends.
That's called grooming.
There's no pedophile ring. There's a pedophile and then a bunch of friends who were getting massages at that point from women who were no longer underage.
That's called grooming. I'm transgender. In the United States, the narrative has been perpetually against trans people, claiming that trans people are groomers simply because we exist. Simply because people dare to mention us in the media or at schools or at all. Yet what you just saw here was a plain, bold-faced example, unapologetic example of two media figures who make apologia for a literal sex trafficker.
Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types. We have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10, I was under 14 when I first came within his purview. Look, you can say that's a distinction without a difference.
No, it's not.
I think there is a difference. Yeah. There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Jeffrey Epstein, surrounded by a bunch of friends whom he passed on those other people to once they become of age, while he was fondling around with them while they were underage. What do you think that is? How can we trust people who are perpetuating the narrative that trans people are groomers if they themselves cannot demonstrate to know or to recognize what grooming is when it is directly in their face?
Drag queen shows in front of children that are sexualized are grossly inappropriate. And if you're not equally outraged about it, then you are part of the problem.
The reason why they're having a hard time saying the word sex ring is because they don't want to hold other people accountable. They don't want to hold people like Donald John Trump accountable because that's their daddy. And if they speak out against their daddy, whom they have to, realize and reckon with the fact that he is a pedophile with 34 actual counts of felony charges for sexual assault, then that would get in the way of their allegiance to their leader, to their supreme Führer, to their daddy. And then Megyn Kelly has the audacity to try to argue that it is okay to have sex with a 15-year-old.
And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And that is what I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years.
She goes into this argument saying that it is not the same thing to have sex with a 15-year-old than it is to have sex with a 5-year-old, which is such a weird argumentation to make in the first place, Because who cares if there's a 10-year gap between the two? It's still wrong. You're really gonna try to make this argument here that like one is worse than the other because one is learning their ABCs while the other is learning how to build proper relationships for the first time in their lives. When I was 15 years old, I was barely learning how to develop relationships, like proper actual relationships for the first time. And I don't even necessarily mean romantic relationships, those too. But I mean like actual meaningful friendships that would last a very long time. And I had to parse through extremely predatory people. I mean, there's a reason why when schools out at high schools, there are supervisors who are waiting out front because they're looking out for predators, like Ghislaine Maxwell, for fuck's sake.
We do have some breaking news for you as we continue to follow the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Putting this up on your screen right now, this post from the New York Post. We are learning the U.S. Bureau of Prisons saying today that Ghislaine Maxwell has been transferred from a Florida prison to a lower security facility in Texas to continue serving her 20-year sentence for helping sex offender Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls.
You know what else is great about Biden's decline is that Trump is all over the Epstein files, and I'm wondering if they're going to release those. Are you covering that tonight?
Maxwell's move from FCI Tallahassee, a low-security prison, to the federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas, comes a week after she met with Deputy U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche, who said he wanted to speak with her about anyone else who may have been involved in Epstein's crimes.
Not really, because the woman that apparently they're talking about is the one that said he was a gentleman and never did anything wrong. And the person that had a grudge was the guy that got thrown out of Mar-a-Lago 25 years ago.
Now, this also comes after President Trump said a bit earlier this week on Tuesday that Jeffrey Epstein, quote, stole young women who worked for the spa at Mar-a-Lago. One of those women, he said, was Virginia Giuffre, who was among Epstein's most well-known sex trafficking accusers.
And by the way, when you get thrown out of a club in Palm Beach, Florida, that's kind of a big deal. And it's very humiliating and embarrassing. And he was a convicted pedophile. So I'm not exactly putting a lot of gospel truth in what he said.
Trump was mad that he was stealing his girls, but
And here's Laura Loomer just being casually racist in the hopes that people will forget about the Epstein files, because being racist makes child rape okay, apparently, according to the Christian nationalist scumbags. And it's like Megyn Kelly, either through sheer cognitive dissonance or maybe she's a pedophile herself, I don't know which one truly, seems to be unable to recognize that.
We have not seen some slew of young women come forward to say, me too.
And before somebody tries to get into some sicko debate about pedophilia or whatever, no, you're just a pedophile. Like, for real. Even like 18 years old, that's still too young. 21 years old, that's still too young. I'm 33, about to be 34 in a month from now. I don't date people under 25 for fuck's sake. I'm too old for that. Besides, the people whom I typically date are much older than me anyway. I tend to swing more towards the older folks. But I'm also in my almost mid-30s. So me dating like a 50, 60-year-old, so to speak, is not the same as me dating a fucking 15-year-old like Megyn Kelly is trying to imply is somewhat socially acceptable here.
That he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls.
There's a real pedophile problem in the United States, right? And a lot of these MAGA folks have children of their own, right? And I'm not trying to imply necessarily that they are child rapists in their own right, although plenty of them are. I am saying, however, that a majority of them are definitely concerned about their child's safety. So then, if they're voting for Donald Trump, and they're supporting the MAGA movement under the assumption that Donald Trump is going to save the country, so on and so forth, with some nationalistic bullshit that has been fed to them repeatedly over the course of almost a decade by now. How do you think these people are going to feel once they realize, once it clicks in their head, that Donald Trump is a sex trafficker who used his beauty pageant fucking business to traffic people into the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, and also the fact that Donald Trump spent hours with girls that Jeffrey Epstein gave to him to play with on Epstein's island while flying on the Lolita Express? Yeah, the writing is on the wall. It doesn't look good. And my friends, I am sick and tired of these mainstream Christian nationalists, white supremacist politicians and pundits making apologia for not just Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, but for pedophilic behavior.
Senator Booker also said we should have bipartisan agreement. I think that's a great idea. We should have bipartisan agreement. How about we all come together and say, let's stop murders? How about we all come together and say, let's stop rapes? How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles?
It is absolutely abhorrent what we're seeing here. And my friends, I am so tired of it. I am so fucking tired of it. Because I also am a victim of child sex abuse. I was sexually assaulted in the Catholic Church when I was 11 years old. I am sometimes afraid to talk about this story in front of people, even right now, because I am afraid that one, people are going to try to doubt my story, say it never happened when it very well did. And then two, people sometimes make fun of what happened to me. Like, oh, you deserve to have been molested when you were young.
I am a victim of grooming. I was groomed when I was 11 years old. And I am disgusted with all of you here. I'm disgusted with all of you because it was not an immigrant. It was multiple.
These people are absolutely fucking sick. Like sick. Genuinely sick. People need to realize that no matter what, like, this is not a defensible position.
How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles?
In fact, also, let me just say something right now. Why are all of these, like, libertarian right-wing people and, you know, national socialist people and MAGA conservatives, why are they always trying to lower the age of consent? Why are they always trying so hard to lower the age of people getting involved in the workforce here? Because, you know, sex work is also work, right? There are laws against sex work, and there are also laws that regulate sex work, like on OnlyFans and things like that. Do you realize that at some point, there's going to be an inevitability where child sex abuse is going to be legal if we keep going with this? Like, that's an inevitability. These libertarian, so-called anarcho-capitalist people are always trying to lower the age of consent so that way they can jack off to lolicon or whatever. And then meanwhile, in the same group of people, they're always trying to lower the age that children can work in the workforce for, even though they're supposed to be going to school, trying to get good grades, trying to study so that way they can have a successful future, not supporting their parents in a dwindling fucking capitalist hellscape economy. So I mean, I think the writing's truly on the wall here, that like at some point, child sex abuse is going to be on the menu for these MAGA Christian nationalist fuckwads. And my friends, I am now holding my breath for the opposite to happen. We need to stop them before it's too late. And yes, I support releasing the Epstein files, 100%. The fact that it's taken the Trump administration and Congress, and yeah, I'll even say, yes, even Biden, this long for them to release the Epstein files is absolutely ridiculous. This is the progress of the Epstein files going through Congress as of recording this video. Yes, Democrats on the bill should be legally handled. Yes, Noam Chomsky, who is on the list, should be legally handled. There is no exceptions here. I don't make exceptions for left-wing or liberal or centrist people who are on the bill. So then why would it matter if Donald Trump's on the list? Why is Trump your exception here? Why are you pussyfooting about the fact that Donald Trump is on the Epstein list?
Did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No. What's interesting is that Megyn Kelly and her Israeli friend here talk at great length about how Jeffrey Epstein was with his friends while he was being pedophilic, but Donald Trump had a uniquely close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, there's plenty of evidence already to point to that anyway.
Epstein emails now convicted accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell in part, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Maxwell responds, I have been thinking about that.
Why is she trying to minimize the literal nature of Donald Trump's pedophilic fucking antics?
We have not seen some slew of young women come forward to say, me too. on Donald Trump molesting them or having paid for sex with them.
It is unacceptable, and these people should be deeply ashamed. And most importantly, in light of Donald Trump's fascist fucking reign on the United States of America, Megyn Kelly will be remembered as the bitch who defended a fascist fucking pedophile. And in fucking 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years, when they start writing about Donald Trump in the history books in the same vein that they talk about like Richard Nixon and the Watergate scandal, we're going to remember Megyn Kelly as the person who metaphorically dick-sucked a fucking fascist pedophile to save face. And that is absolutely unforgivable.
If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
And I never, ever, ever, ever want to hear from these fucking goddamn Christian nationalist pedophile scums ever again that trans people are groomers. Never fucking again. We're called groomers literally just for existing. Like, what the actual fuck?
You were in the news and making a robocall that suggested transgender people might want to go into the bathrooms of girls, with locker rooms of girls, and that they may be child molesters. Folks have used that in the past week against you, saying, how could you unfairly, in their view, compare transgender people to child molesters, knowing what you know about Josh?
I think that protecting young girls and not allowing young men and men in general to go into a girl's locker room is just common sense.
But this is different because you injected child molestation into it.
I think you actually said that, and actually is an adult that preys on children. Joshua was actually 14 and just turned 15 when he did what he did.